We're joined now by independent MEP Luke Ming Flanagan. Luke, thanks very much for coming to join us. Luke, political agreement has been reached on the EU-Mercosur deal. You've actually described it as a mockery of our commitment on climate mitigation. Why?
Well, the simple fact is Europe already has access to the most environmentally sustainable beef on the planet, Irish beef, fed on permanent pasture land. And what they're suggesting is that we end up moving to a situation where that beef, which has fantastic environmental credentials, that it is expected to compete with beef that comes potentially from an area where they had to cut down the Amazonian rainforest to produce it, where we have no idea about the traceability of it, no idea what they have put into it, except for maybe up until 3 months before it's killed. And anyone who can suggest that there will be anything positive environmentally to come out of this is either lying to themselves or they're trying to con us.
But Luke, the Commission has said that the Mercosur bloc will be subject to strict environmental and sanitary and phytosanitary standards under the deal. Then you have the Mercosur bloc itself saying that they want to get rid of this stigma that is there around agriculture and the rotten apples that they have. And there is actually a push button, a red push button apparently in the deal as well, that if food scares emerge, that the EU can block those regions where the problems are. So isn't there a level of reassurance there in the trade deal on an environmental side?
Well, they would say that because there's a lot of people going to make an awful lot of money out of this. And in particular, the car industry, Volkswagen, for example, simple as this, whatever it takes to sell those vehicles. Just before I came in here to talk to you, I was explaining about what happened with another deal that Germany did in the past. They sold weapons cheap to Saudi Arabia in return for votes to hold the World Cup. So if I was to take reassurances from Germany or any of those states or the European Commission who tell us there'll be no problem with this, I'd have to say I'd have an awful problem believing it, because the simple fact is this: you cannot improve on perfection. We already have perfection here with suckler beef. We already have perfection when it comes to animal welfare standards, which is something of a massive issue to European Union citizens. And we already have what we want. When is the last time you ever heard anyone clamouring, looking for Brazilian beef? The only people who want Brazilian beef to come into Europe are the multinationals who are going to make a fortune off the backs of ordinary people.
Luke, there has been a ferocious pushback on this from Irish farmers, from the farm organisations and within political circles. Is that voice being heard out in Brussels? You're there at the coalface out there.
Well, there's lots to talk about it, but unfortunately, but I wouldn't say unfortunately, rather coincidentally or maybe deliberately, this agreement has been struck at a time where we do not have a forum to officially discuss this, because the Agriculture Committee has not yet been formed. If it had been formed, it would be the first thing that we would have brought up. So we're having our constitutive meeting on Wednesday where we will be put together, and we'll decide who our chairman is and decide who the members are, decide who the coordinators are, and I will be bringing it up under any other business, this abomination of a deal that they're trying to go ahead with. And in fairness to the Agriculture Committee, and John Clark, one of the chief trade negotiators, heard this from the committee. We were like a choir singing in unison, objecting to this deal. Now you'd have to ask the question, if the representatives of agriculture and the people of Europe on the Agriculture Committee are all 100% against this, where is democracy in Europe if they're going to try and go ahead with it? So there is opposition to it. We will get an opportunity to vote on this in the full European Parliament. I will be voting against it. The leader of our group brought it up yesterday at the post-European Council statements in the plenary. It got massive applause. I noticed that Mairead McGuinness did not clap the statements, even though half the chamber did. But we will be expecting people like Mairead McGuinness to vote against this when it comes before the full European Parliament. And also, Leo Varadkar is making sounds about how he will object to it at the Trade Council. Well, it requires a qualified majority for it to go through. So I hope he's out there today working on getting 1/3 of these countries to object to it. Because if we don't, whatever about people in farming beef here. It is going to destroy them. But there are other issues as well. We apparently are trying to do something about climate change in Europe. If we go ahead with this deal, why the hell should anyone in the world ever listen to us pontificating about this ever again? Because we will be one of the biggest sinners at that stage.
When you talk about timing there, Luke, in recent weeks we had the announcement of the €50 million fund towards the beef sector here, which will be matched by 50 million in Ireland in order to support farmers that have been affected by market disturbances and I suppose Brexit uncertainty as well. What about the timing of that? Was that fund, in your view, announced to kind of soften the blow of this Mercosur trade deal coming down the line?
Well, they were my suspicions at the time that it was announced. I did suggest that maybe this was a sweetener for the Mercosur deal, which potentially could have been announced a week or two later. It has now been announced, and no more than trying to do something about the Mercosur deal, it was announced at a time when the members of the European Parliament Agri Committee were not sitting. But something very interesting has come to light when we contacted the Department of Agriculture to see their submission on this. They applied under Article 219 of the regulation for a temporary disturbance, something that would only be for a short term, for 1 year. But what we have got in the end is something under Article 221, which can actually be rolled over and can be extended. And my worry is that this will be extended and we will be forced down the road of production reduction. Now, we were given assurances, myself and the colleagues that I work with on the Agri Committee, when we met the Agriculture Commission, that it was an option to reduce production. We told them that our fear was that the department at home would say that we had no choice but to do this. Those worries were borne out at the Public Accounts Committee when the Secretary General of the Department of Agriculture, Brendan Gleeson, said that it wasn't an option, it was something that we had to do. I have since written to the Public Accounts Committee asking them to correct the record. We have also contacted the Commission to tell them that we were unfortunately proven right, that this is the road that they would drive us down. But the simple facts are this: we do not have to reduce production. It is not a requirement. And what we can do and what we could do is give this 50 to 100 million euros out as a top-up to the ANC payments. That would be a better way to do it, and then try and solve the problem. And there are problems with the sustainability of beef in the long term. We deal with that under the review of the Common Agricultural Policy.
Luke, finally, we're just nearly out of time. You're back out in Brussels. You're reappointed to the Ag Committee, 5 years ahead of you. You're on the Trade Committee as well.
Yes.
Can you just outline your priorities for the years ahead? And also, you're going to have some assistance there from Claire Daly and Mick Wallace, who are now MEPs as well. Yeah,
the fact that Claire Daly and Mick Wallace are out there means that I can actually focus more on the Agriculture Committee. I've also now got a substitute position on the INTA Committee, which is the Trade Committee, and for obvious reasons, because of the Mercosur deal, because of the potential of TTIP to come back, I will be focusing more than ever on agriculture. And the reason why is this, and I'll take it from a point that was made to Matt Carty on Twitter last night, and I noticed it. And someone said to him that, sure, this only affects a minority of farmers, and farmers are only a minority, so you shouldn't be concentrating on this 100%. But the reality is, we all eat. This issue affects absolutely everyone, and the quality of food on our plate affects everyone, not only farmers. So for that reason, I will be focusing even more on agriculture in the next 5 years, because what we put into our bellies, if it's good, it helps our health. If it's not good, it affects our health. So this issue affects absolutely everyone, and people have got to wake up to that.
Luke, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much for coming in to us.